In Poppy Playtime Chapter 4, we're introduced to a whole bunch of new experiments, with the whole premise of the chapter to kill their creator, the Doctor. The Doctor tries to stop our efforts with many of his minions, or quote-unquote pets. He throws everything he has at us, but in the end, we kill him and grab the Omni-Hand chip. And that's the end of his story. But it shouldn't have been. In 1991, Playtime Co. started the Smiling Critters line. At first, it was a harmless group of products, with all the wealth from the Huggy Wuggy success poured into it. They had a huge marketing push, commercials playing all over the place, and shelves stocked with smiling plush animals. However, not everything was well. Some controversies started with one specific toy, Catnap. At first, it seemed like a normal success story, kids loving the cute sleepy-eyed cat, but then reports started coming in. Parents began noticing something strange. Their children, the ones who adored Catnap, were having intense nightmares. Not just bad dreams, but something worse. Some kids were waking up screaming, others would refuse to go near their Catnap plushies anymore. Playtime was quick to remove Catnap from the line, but the damage was already done. The news spread like wildfire, and soon lawsuits started piling up. Parents were furious, claiming that Playtime Co. had put something in the toy that was messing with their kids' heads. Whether there was any truth to it or not, it didn't matter. Playtime Co. was at an all-time low. No money, employees quitting, dried up funding. It was the end for the factory. Or was it? Harley Sawyer was a young genius. That's why when Elliot Ludwig made his program for people like him, he joined. He was the smartest of the smart, always ahead of the curve, always thinking of the next big thing. But he wasn't exactly a team player. He was driven by only the idea of pushing what was possible, and he didn't care about the rules. He was a somewhat careless man, and did things how he wanted, without thinking of the consequences. This led to Ludwig having to kick him out of the program. Sawyer took it badly. He didn't just leave Playtime Co., he left it behind completely, never looking back, never wanting to return to the factory, until many years later. Pierre, head of innovation, had sent him a letter. It was an invite back to the factory. After all of those years, Sawyer had never expected to go back, and honestly, he didn't want to. But something made him say yes. Maybe curiosity or something else. Either way, he returned, and that's when the experiment started. Sawyer, leading many scientists, decided to do a biological experiments. At first, they were simple and small scale. Problem was that the containers they used for them were small too, which meant they couldn't fit large organic parts in them. At the time, they were using rats they found in the cave, but that would not last long. There were limits to what rats could do, and Sawyer wasn't the type of man who liked limits. Then, Playtime Co. opened Playcare, their very own on-site orphanage. Hundreds of orphans stayed there, no one who would come looking for them, and that's when Sawyer's experiments took a darker turn. Harley began to use the kids as experience, but it never seemed to work. The process was too much for them, and one after another the experiments would always die. The problem was the same as before, size. The human body wasn't enough. It couldn't handle the transformation, couldn't survive what they were doing to it. And that's when the idea struck him. What if they made them bigger? What if instead of small creatures, they made huge 8-foot-tall beings? That was the beginning of the Bigger Bodies initiative, and it worked. Of course, there were some problems. Huggy Wuggy was one of them. Catnap was another. And then, of course, there was 1006, the prototype. I just spit on my computer when I said that. Can we cut that out? Oh my gosh, why did I do that? But for the most part, everything was running smoothly. The bigger creatures survived. They could be controlled. It was all going according to plan, until Ludwig found out. When he discovered what was really going on, he was furious. He wanted to shut it all down, put a stop to what Harley was doing. But he didn't fire him. Instead, he did something worse. He demoted him, putting Dr. White in charge instead. It was a power move, a way to make sure Sawyer couldn't do whatever he wanted anymore. Harley was furious. He had dedicated everything to this project, and now he was being sidelined? He took his anger out on the only people he could: the workers, the scientists, anyone who got in his way. And then something happened. Something known as the theater incident. It's not set in stone, but the theory community is pretty sure this is when Harley killed Elliot Ludwig. This is when Laith Pierre took over. And the higher-ups, this was the last straw, so they devised a plan.
So, we can't kill the son of a but we need to knock him out of the equation. What do we do?
There is one thing I can think of.
Oh, it looks like he's waking up.
Where am I? What is this? Oh no. They didn't. Those backstabbing traitors.
Harley was now just a resource for the scientists to use if they needed, and he stayed like that up until the hour of joy. In the hour, the prison warden locked himself in a room where he asked Harley for help. The doctor demanded the Omni Hand, which he said would allow him to make a clear path for the warden to escape. What the warden didn't know was that he had just given Sawyer his ticket to full control of the factory, to truly become the all-seeing eye. We don't know for sure, but it's very likely Sawyer did not keep his end of the deal with the warden and left him to die. Here is where the theories come in. While the doctor was working with 1006 to supposedly make a human body for them to leave the factory, Sawyer sent us a note telling us to come back to the factory. It talks about the note in one of his voice lines, and in one of the tapes, the prototype tells him he better not be stalling. Stalling for what? I think he is trying to buy time for us to kill the prototype. But of course, he can't say that, or else 1006 would kill him. This may not be true, but I thought I should mention it. And after we fight him for half the chapter, we overpower his system and kill his brain, leaving nothing but his computer system. This means he may still be alive, but that's a theory for another day.